52 people live in the entire county, and it still has a working courthouse. Sewage that surfaces in a backyard doesn't get called in as an emergency anymore, because emergency implies somebody's still coming to fix it. Nobody rang a bell on any of this. No headline, no evacuation order, no declared disaster. Just towns where the plumbing quietly quit, the jobs quietly left, and the map never updated. 7 of them, coast to coast. On paper, every single one is the United States. In practice, that's the question this video is going to make you sit with. And the last one on this list is going to make you rethink everything you just watched. Start in Mentone, Texas. 52 residents left in Loving County, the least populated county in the entire country, and that number is still falling. Do the math on the oil money running under that dirt, divided by 52 people. And on paper, this is one of the wealthiest counties per person in America. There is no grocery store inside the county line. No gas station on most maps. The nearest hospital is an hour down an empty highway. So a heart attack here isn't a medical emergency. It's a countdown that starts before anyone even reaches the car. Money never built a single grocery store here. Ask anyone who's driven an hour for milk what wealth actually buys you once the signal drops. And if 52 people can barely keep a courthouse fed, imagine what happens to a town of 900 with no oil underneath it. That's Gloucester, Mississippi. Population under 900, dropping by roughly 1 in 50 every year. Median household income $23,603. Poverty rate closing in on 30%. In a single year, local employment fell almost 8%, 363 jobs down to 335, and nobody wrote a headline, because 8% of not much doesn't trend. Nothing here collapsed on camera. It just got a little quieter, a little older, a little smaller, year after year, until the infrastructure that holds a town together had been dismantled piece by piece, and nobody ever signed the order that did it. Nobody signed the order. It happened anyway. Multiply that by a few thousand towns, and you start to understand why nobody's coming. Welch, West Virginia used to be the kind of place that didn't need luck. McDowell County held over 100,000 people at the peak of the coal boom. Today, the county's down to about 16,570 and still falling close to 2% a year, with more than 1 in 3 residents below the poverty line. This year, national cameras showed America a county where a third of households need food assistance just to eat, and some residents can't fully trust their own tap water. Every few years, someone in a suit promises a coal renaissance. It never arrives. The limestone storefronts on Main Street were built to outlast a century of prosperity, and they did exactly that. They're still standing. The prosperity is what didn't make it. The buildings survived. The reason for them didn't. That's not a ghost town. Ghost towns disappear. This one just got hollowed out and left standing, which is worse. Standing and hollow describes Lynch, Kentucky almost too well, except Lynch wasn't an accident. It was a blueprint. U.S. Steel platted the entire town in 1917 and stacked the houses straight up the hillside by rank. Superintendent on top, foreman below him, miners at the bottom. So you could read the entire company chain of command just by looking at whose porch sat highest. At its peak, 10,000 people lived inside that hierarchy. Today it's under 700. The company left. The hierarchy stayed. The streets are still graded by rank. The houses are still stacked by class. And the only thing missing is the corporation that gave any of it a reason to exist. The people who stayed didn't design that hillside. They just never got to leave it. Presidio, Texas sits on the Rio Grande, staring straight across at Ojinaga, Mexico. 2 countries touching should mean trade, motion, a crossroads. Instead, it feels like the last exit before the road stops mattering to anyone. Population's under 3,000 and dropping close to 2% a year. Poverty's near 39%. Summers regularly hit 110 degrees. And there's exactly 1 hospital in the entire county. One that's teetered on the edge of closing more than once, in a state that leads the nation in rural hospital closures, with dozens more one bad budget year from following it. Families here are laced into Mexico by blood and by Sunday dinner, whether Austin's paperwork admits it or not. The state governs this stretch of river like a security perimeter. Washington treats it like a checkpoint. On the map, it's Texas. In the budget, it's nowhere. If you're from a border town, comment how many times you've heard your home described as a crisis by someone who's never spent a single night there. Clarksdale, Mississippi gave American music its foundation and never got paid for it. Robert Johnson, Son House, Muddy Waters. The sound that built entire genres came out of juke joints on Sunflower Avenue. There's a museum for it now, well-funded, genuinely excellent, tour buses in the lot. Walk 2 blocks outside it, and you're in a town with a poverty rate near 40%, population cut nearly in half since 2000. Murals of blues legends painted on brick facing empty lots where the buildings that raised them used to stand. Labels like Chess and Paramount took that sound, pressed it, sold it around the world, and built decades of careers on it without the check ever finding its way back to this zip code. This year, the town's pinning its hope on a data center deal because Clarksdale's entire annual budget, $12.5 million, is smaller than what some towns pull from a single data center's tax bill alone. They took the sound and left the poverty. The museum is real. So is the 40%. If that makes you angry, hit like right now, because anger is the only royalty check this town has ever actually gotten. Last stop, and it's the one that should bother you the most. Camden, New Jersey, 1 bridge away from Philadelphia. For years, this was ranked the single most impoverished city in America. Over 30,000 residents below the poverty line. Homicide counts that made national news every summer. Then something genuinely happened. 17 murders in 2024, the lowest number since 1985. Shootings down 36%. Violent crime down 17% in a single year. The job market grew almost 30% since 2017. Graduation rates jumped from 49% to 70%. The state of New Jersey took direct control of Camden's government back in 2002. Chasing exactly these numbers, and by every metric it was chasing, it worked. Here's the part that should stop you cold. The poverty rate today sits at 33.6%, almost exactly what it's always been. The people who lived through the worst of it earned every point that homicide number dropped. The rent didn't care. Crime is a policy problem. Poverty is a math problem. America keeps solving the first one. Mentone, Gloucester, Welch, Lynch, Presidio, Clarksdale, Camden. 7 zip codes, 7 different reasons, one identical feeling once you're standing inside any of them. On paper, this is the United States. In practice, the promise stopped at the county line, and in Camden's case, it stopped even after everything else got fixed. Say which of these 7 felt closest to home in the comments, because somebody watching grew up 2 exits from one of them. Subscribe if you want the 8th, because there's always an 8th. The scary part was never these 7 towns. It's that once you see the gap between the paper and the practice, you don't stop seeing it at 7.